You're in a meeting. Someone with a fancy title tells you the new policy will improve efficiency. Your face stays neutral, but in your head, instant skepticism. Not anger, just this automatic, reflexive doubt. You don't even decide to feel it. It's just there. If you were born between 1965 and 1980, this reaction is practically hardwired. And once you understand why, you'll see this pattern everywhere.
Hi, my name is Paul, and I spend way too much time obsessing over psychology. Seriously, it's a problem. But if you really want to understand your psychology, why you think the way you do, why you react the way you react, click that like button and subscribe, because today, I'm going into something that's probably been running in the background of your brain your entire adult life. Here's how it plays out. Your company announces a town hall with leadership. Before anyone even speaks, you've already dismissed it. Not because you hate your job, you might love it, but because something in you knows the official story isn't the whole story. Meanwhile, your boomer colleague takes notes. Your Gen Z coworker live tweets it, half joking. But you're listening for what's not being said. This isn't personality. This isn't cynicism. Psychologists call this learned institutional distrust, and it didn't come from nowhere. What you're experiencing is institutional skepticism shaped by developmental context. In developmental psychology, there's this idea. The social environment you grow up in, especially between ages 8 and 18, creates what researchers call your institutional schema. Gen X developed their schemas during a very specific time, roughly 1973 to 1998. And during those years, institutional credibility collapsed across almost every major domain of American life. This matters because these schemas don't just affect how you feel, they determine what information you accept, who you believe, how you make decisions for the rest of your life. The research on generational trust patterns really accelerated in the 1990s and 2000s. Sociologists like Robert Putnam and psychologists studying social capital noticed something weird. Trust in institutions wasn't just declining, it was splitting along generational lines. Earlier researchers thought distrust was either individual personality or tied to specific bad experiences, but what they were missing was the timing. When everyone in an age cohort experiences institutional failure during their formative years, you don't just get individual cynics, you get a generational orientation. Gen X became the test case. Let me walk you through what actually happened in Gen X brains. Between roughly ages 8 and 18, your brain is building templates for how the world works. You're not just learning facts, you're learning meta-patterns. Do authority figures tell the truth? When institutions fail, do they take responsibility? Is the official story reliable? These aren't conscious beliefs. They're automatic assumptions that shape every interaction you have afterward. Now here's what Gen X absorbed during that window. Watergate, 1972 to 74. The president is a criminal. Vietnam, the government lied about a war. Iran-Contra, 1985 to 87. They're still lying. Challenger explosion, 1986. NASA knew and launched anyway. Exxon Valdez, 1989. Corporations won't police themselves. Savings and loan crisis. The banks failed, got bailed out. Clinton-Lewinsky scandal, 1998. Even the denial is a lie. Here's what's critical. One scandal teaches you about one bad actor, but a pattern of scandals teaches you about systems. Gen X brains didn't just learn Nixon was corrupt, they learned something deeper. Official sources routinely lie. Institutions protect themselves first, and the truth comes out later, if you're paying attention. And then, this is key, Gen X entered the workforce during corporate downsizing in the 90s. Loyalty meant nothing. Companies promised stability and delivered layoffs. A famous study by Twenge and Campbell in 2001 tracked trust levels across generations. Gen X scored consistently lower on trust in major institutions than both boomers and later millennials. But here's what matters. It wasn't personality-driven cynicism. It was evidence-based skepticism. Watch a Gen Xer interact with a terms of service agreement. They don't read it because they already know: 1, it's designed to protect the company; 2, they have no negotiating power; and 3, the real terms will change later anyway. That's not laziness, that's pattern recognition. This institutional skepticism applies to corporate communication, government announcements, media narratives, and official explanations. It does not apply to individual relationships. Gen X can be fiercely loyal to people. Expertise itself, they respect competence. Systems they build themselves, see indie culture, startups, punk, and DIY ethic. The distrust is institutional, not universal. So, how do you use this? If you are Gen X, notice when your skepticism is helping versus hurting you. Helping, you're not falling for obvious marketing. You read between the lines in political messaging. You don't panic when leadership changes. Hurting, you might dismiss good information because it came through official channels, or you might over-index on authenticity and miss strategic value. Watch for this signal. If your first reaction to any institutional message is dismissal, pause. Ask yourself, am I evaluating this claim, or am I pattern matching? If you're working with Gen X, stop trying to win them over with authority or credentials. It won't work. Instead, be transparent about constraints and trade-offs. Admit what you don't know. Show your work. Don't oversell. Gen X will trust you when you act trustworthy, not when you claim authority. If you're leading Gen X, the worst thing you can say is "trust me" or "this is how we've always done it." The best thing you can say: "Here's the data, here's the constraint, here's the trade-off. What do you think?" Give them agency and information. They'll run through walls for you. This pattern scales beyond Gen X. What you're seeing here is how collective trauma shapes cognitive development. Any generation that experiences systematic institutional failure during their formative years will develop these same schemas. You can see versions of this in post-Soviet populations, deep distrust of government; in post-2008 millennials, distrust of financial institutions; in post-COVID Gen Z, distrust of public health messaging. The mechanism is the same. Pattern recognition during development becomes automatic orientation in adulthood. Related concepts worth exploring are social capital erosion, epistemic learned helplessness, and institutional versus interpersonal trust. Remember that meeting? That automatic skepticism when someone with authority speaks? Now you know. You're not being difficult. Your brain is doing exactly what it learned to do: protect you from systems that have proven unreliable. The question isn't whether to trust institutions. The question is, which institutions have earned it, and what evidence are you using to decide? Trust isn't given, it's demonstrated. So here's your homework. Think about the last time you automatically dismissed something official. Were you responding to the message or the pattern?